Hi, this is Barry Rosen. I wanted to introduce my spring class called Hidden Shadows in Vedic Astrology, Moving Beyond Mental Blocks and Karma. This is kind of another exciting innovative class that I'm always trying to kind of put together classes that are off the beaten path, so to speak. Uh, this class is kind of, the focus of this class, with Vedic Astrology, um, the purpose of Vedic astrology is to kind of shed light on our patterns. Usually we're kind of gripped by emotional and mental patterns in our life, and we're usually, totally bound by them, whether they're fear or anger or something like that. But if we understand that it's Mars or Saturn that's going to cause the pattern, that knowledge, and being able to shift our awareness beyond the pattern is very powerful to alleviate the suffering. I remember when I was very young, in my early days of Vedic astrology, and I was getting hammered by Saturn, and I just talked to Saturn, and I said, Saturn, you can go now. We're friends. I understand what you're trying to do, and you can go now. I understand, and I felt this huge lift of energy, and that's because we're more powerful than the planets. We're much more powerful than the planets, and we actually command them. We shouldn't be a victim of them, but usually, if we don't have enough awareness of what's going on in our chart and in our life, then we become a victim, and we get caught up in our thought patterns and our emotional patterns. There's some patterns in Vedic astrology that are very, very deep, and they're even very hidden to many Vedic astrologers, and they're particularly difficult to not only understand in your chart, but also to kind of heal. And we're going to spend a kind of a whole class on this during this 5-week period starting April 2nd. We're going to be meeting 5 Sundays with 1 week off probably on April 30th. And the first week of the class is on the astrology of karma. Each of the planets offers different life lessons. Saturn teaches us discipline and responsibility and hard work and focus. And if we have a weak Saturn in our chart, then we have trouble with those things. And if we don't learn how to master those patterns, then what happens is, we suffer. And I'm always reminded of that wonderful movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray wakes up in this perpetual nightmare. Sometimes he tries to eat his way into oblivion at the diner. And then sometimes he tries to crash his car off the cliff, and every time he wakes up with the same nightmare until he starts helping people and expressing his artistic talents, learning piano, doing ice sculptures. It's a very inspiring movie. If you haven't seen it, in fact, tomorrow is Groundhog Day, February 2nd. A good day to watch the movie. The first week of the class is going to go through the astrology of karma, understanding the basic lessons of the planets. The second week of the class is going to cover multidimensionality in Vedic astrology. And that is very exciting in my life. I find that belief structures, emotional patterns, physical problems, and material problem manifestations have multiple levels of reality, and they're all connected. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine is doing a chart has K2 in the 4th house. K2 in the 4th house causes hidden problems with cars and homes. And lo and behold, he had this problem with this car, and for a year and a half, every mechanic he took it into could not find this problem. At the same time, 4th house is heart. He had a valve problem in his heart. And finally, at some point, his mechanic found this valve problem in his car. And at the same time, he had this valve problem in his heart. And K2 in the 4th house, is also not feeling that mother is there, feeling a lack of happiness because mother wasn't there when we were growing up. That causes discontentment. It's a very deep pattern. So it's as if his automobile was trying to tell him that he needed to fix his emotional problem around his mother, and his physical heart was trying to manifest that. So problems, emotional and psychological problems that we aren't aware of, manifest into bodily problems, and then material problems. So even, if you're getting a flat tire the back of your car, it's usually, chances are you're depressed. I've seen this happen a bunch of times. My tire gauge goes low and actually depressed that day. So there's no accidents in the universe, and I think this kind of multidimensionality and learning to diagnose it in Vedic astrology is quite exciting. Week 3 of our course is looking at the lunar nodes, Rahu and Ketu, and how they form the karmic axis of desire and restriction in our life, and being a desire for the future and our restrictions from the past. We could easily have a 6-week course on Rahu and Ketu, but they are kind of hidden shadows. They're not even that hidden, actually, but they do are important drive in our chart. Fourth week of the class is one of the more exciting parts of the class is on Boudica. Boudica has all kinds of different Vedic translations. I'd like to translate it as hidden astrological shadows and unconscious patterns, and it's connected with the 7th, 9th, and 11th houses for dual, fixed, and movable signs. Boudica problems are quite fascinating because they're so hard to see, and yet they kind of take over your life. I was running a Boudica Mars period for my Leo rising company chart for 7 years, and I had even though Mars is Yoga Karaka, it's a Boudica planet, and I was unable from the time the period started. I started like giving up on marketing. I started feeling like, oh, nothing's going to work. Why bother? Why spend all this money on marketing? No one's going to find me. And my sales dropped, 50%. Because I just had this mental, psychological shadow covering my life saying nothing was going to work, and nothing worked. And it was such a strong force that, I couldn't muster the energy to get through it. And finally, towards the end of the period, I finally understood what was going on, and I finally did some, Vedic mantras and some healing on it. And it lifted, and then now my company's in a Rahu period, and the energy's not there at all. I used to be this brilliant marketer, and everybody used to look up to me as this incredible, brilliant marketer, and then suddenly it just fell apart. That's kind of an example of a Boudica period. Sometimes we just can't even see what's going on, and it creates a lot of suffering in our life, but we can't get a handle on it. Most of us, Boudica often manifests with difficult relationships that we just can't do anything about. When it's the 7th house connected to the dual signs, it can be deep problems with spirituality and fathers and gurus when it's in 9th house Boudica, as with the fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo. And then with the movable signs, it's 11th house problem connected to friends and income and health matters. And it's quite a fascinating topic, so we'll be covering that in week 4 of our class. In week 5, we're going to go through the shadow planets, we call the Upagrahas. And there's a lot of other shadowy influences in Vedic astrology that people don't often learn. Gulika and Mandi are Upagrahas of the sons of Saturn, and they often create kind of hidden paranoia. When you have a transit over a Gulika or Mandi, it sometimes creates this wild unconscious fear that, you think, it isn't real, but it takes over your mind. And serious Gulika and Mandi influences create obviously major psychological problems that psychiatrists are going to deal with. We're also going to look at Dagda Rashis, which comes from the Panchanga. And Dagda Rashis are connected to the key Panchanga points. And when they manifest, they're also kind of create these kind of hidden psychological shadows. It's not like there's a real problem in the chart in terms of like a physical manifestation, but there's a psychological problem. So if you think you can't manifest something, then it doesn't happen. So, there's a famous story of a study they've done where they put a barracuda into a tank, and they put a piece of plexiglass and a bunch of fish on the other side, and the barracuda would keep hitting his nose against the plexiglass, and because he couldn't get at the food. And so when they lifted the plexiglass out, and the barracuda could actually go through, the barracuda couldn't get to the other, wouldn't get to the other side anyway. And it's kind of like these hidden psychological issues that we have when we believe relationships won't work, or we have this deep unconscious pattern about money or something like that, then they don't work. So we'll also try to focus a little bit on upaya and remedies for dealing with this. I have a whole program, transformational counseling program, to lift a lot of these patterns. Again, it's one thing to, first of all, we have to understand what the patterns are, and they're hidden, so we can't see them. So we have to learn to understand the patterns, and then we have to kind of, do our work to get through those patterns. It's very powerful, very powerful information. The cost of the class is $125. It's the early bird special through February 15th. You can sign up at appliedvedicastrology.com. Most of you know my website, www.appliedvedicastrology.com. You can also email me at barry2@fortecast.com if you have questions. Information is on my website. The classes will be recorded on GoToMeeting. They'll be live, and then if you miss a class, you can make it up. You can see it again. They'll be mailed on Dropbox. And I think, again, this is very kind of unique material that most people will get to study, so I think you'll enjoy it. Hidden Shadows in Vedic Astrology, starting Sunday, April 2nd. For 5 weeks. We'll probably miss it one Sunday and have a day off. I think I'm going to be traveling to London for the British Association of Vedic Astrology Conference, which will be on April 30th. So look forward to taking the class again, www.appliedvedicastrology.com.